Sweet. All right. Yeah, let's just go ahead and get started then. Um, and, the side now. All right, so we're talking Quincy Apparel. All right, so let's see. Decide as a group which offer you will accept, if any. State your decision and explain your reasoning. So the first point is, what do you believe caused the failure of Quincy Apparel?
Yeah, I think it was a couple different things. Um, I first think that, I mean, the teacher kind of gave us a hint when she said that it really wasn't an MVP that they were releasing when they first started. I think they had like, what, 11 different outfits and like a couple of different alterations per outfit. So that's kind of a lot to start with. Um, that accompanied with their small team of designers really like put them, you know, at behind to begin with. And then when they kept on like going and going and going, and orders kept on being placed, they really didn't have a lot of time per one, which equated to a lot of different mistakes. And that made the return policy kind of like hurt them on the back end because they were, shipping them for free, and then they were taking them back for free, and then shipping them out again for free. So they're making like what, like $5 each time that something like that happened. So
All right. So that sounds good. So that they had a lot of problems in the beginning. So it seemed like the whole course that the business was taking was one that was going to lead to destruction, anyways.
Yeah, I think kind of going along with that MVP idea that they were lacking. They talked about at one point they had this pink material that when people wore it and sweated in it, that it would bleed into other products.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of things they didn't know because, they had the 11 different options. I think it was like three options within each product or something, like 33 total, I think is what I saw. Something of that sort. So I think they're just so spread out, almost like they're producing a full line instead of just an MVP to get them going, that it killed them. They didn't waste a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a good point. This second part says, what should the founders of Quincy Apparel have done differently that might have led to success?
I personally thought that when they came in, it said in the case study how they told their investors and like everyone that was they were talking to that they were going to be coming in as CEO and COO, but they really came in as co-CEOs. And I feel like because they were like undercutting each other a lot, and like they both had to have a hand in daily operations, but also operations for the future, that like the employees saw that. I mean, it's like a really tiny place in what, New York, like a studio apartment basically that they're working with. So like, if they're in this confined studio space and they always see like the two people in charge are, going head and head and kind of undercutting each other, then I think that it just started off with a lack of respect for management.
Well, I think kind of going with that, Caleb, you have they separated themselves. One was a CEO and one was a COO to make investors happier. But kind of like what you said, the employees saw it, and I think because they never actually had their own real jobs, I mean, where it was, okay, this is you, and I'm going to leave you to it, and that's what it is. I might give you my opinion, but you're in charge. It was never like that. And I think that's why at the end they're like, well, I want to do this, and I don't want to do that, trying to decide how they're going to keep the company going. I think that's what caused a lot of turmoil within the companies. They couldn't make real decisions because even though on paper they had their own jobs, they really didn't. And I think that bled through the whole company.
Yeah. Absolutely, especially when it came time for them to decide, whether to expand their inventories and or refine it. That's where they ran into a lot of issues.
Yeah.
All right, so that's something I could definitely write down here, is that the leadership roles, um, though it was on paper to make investors happy, they really didn't have defined jobs. Perfect. All right. Let's see. Okay, so this next part is apply the principles of business model analysis to help us explain which parts of the business model needed to change, and apply a hypothesis-driven entrepreneurship to develop a list of recommended actions that could have reversed the company's fortunes. It's kind of a lot there. So basically, from what we know, let me refine this so it's a little bit easier for us to understand. From what we know about business models, what would we change that could have reversed the direction of the company? I think that's a good way of putting it.
I've taken a couple marketing classes, and it's like the number one rule for marketing is like you can't market to everyone. And I feel like that's what this company was trying to do. Like, yeah, it was based, like for women in the business world, but from sizes 0 to size 20, and with a small team, you really can't, I don't know, you really can't go that broad that fast. So I don't really know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, I think that hits really strongly in the customer value position. That paper that she has us all referenced to fairly often talks about your MVP, what's your minimum viable product to launch, and then what's your roadmap to adding features. I think they kind of skipped the MVP or hit it very quickly and added so many features so fast that caused problems, because they ended up trying to expand into so many different market segments that it hindered quality growth, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I that's where I saw a lot of issues too. Is that the card they're dealt with, they have a small team, they don't have a lot of money, they're trying to tackle basically the El Capitan of the fashion industry, trying to get products for women of all sizes. And are so desperate for money just to make it to their spring collection that they were just a sinking ship from the beginning. Yeah, I think to reverse it, what they could have done, and I see this today too. There's a reason why like the J.C. Penney and like the Kohl's and some of these and Macy's, a lot of these big stores are failing, are because people are more motivated to go to stores represented by like a single brand or a handful of brands. That's why places like Lululemon will do so well. That this company should have narrowed it down to just a couple things that they do really well and attract the business women to that store for that specific fashion line or something that they have. I think that's one way that they could have reversed it, is to really market the brand rather than to all women everywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right, so let's see. So I'm looking. We really just those were the only questions that we had for this group meeting. Trying to say, does anybody have anything else about like the business model or another idea for a business model that could have worked?
So what for the that question? A list of recommended actions that would have reversed the company's fortune. So what do you have?
Let me see here. So I just put for a list of recommended actions that they would have refined their fashion lines and focus on the brand rather than expanding into every market.
Okay.
Is there anything that either of you guys would like to add to that?
Give me 1 second. Something else they could have done, if you're looking at the case itself, pages 13 and 14, 7A and 7B, it shows their segments in the market. You have your affluent traditionalists, rising stars, trend seekers, and fit skeptics. Something you could put in there is they need to, by bringing their product to center stage, getting that MVP going, by, eliminating two of those, cutting their target markets in half, selecting two segments, whether it's the segments that buy the most, the segments that tend to stay on longer with the product. I think by picking two of those and focusing on them, you can really curate a minimum viable product that fits more within that scope. So you still have people who are buying that want to buy, but you're not trying to satisfy every aspect of this. Because I think this is what stretched them out, is they found all these different kinds of women, and they're like, hey, let's try to make a little something for all of them. We'll tweak this, tweak that. All of a sudden they had 30 different products they were trying to sell. So by narrowing that down and then picking the bigger products within those groups, I think that would have helped.
Yeah, that's a good point. Caleb, is there anything else that you'd like to add as far as the question on recommended actions that could have reversed the company's fortunes?
I don't know about reversing, but I feel as though just starting out, they had two people who were, passionate about fashion, but one of them was they had their experience in schooling in theater and math, and then the other one was mechanical engineering or something like that. Was that the second one? Something yeah. Engineering. Well, neither one of them had their, experience in fashion or had really done anything like this before. They enjoyed fashion and they really had, they had an eye for it, but I don't think they really were in their field when they were doing this. But as far as reversing anything, I don't think I can say anything more than what Brock has already said.
So I'm looking, if you guys watched the video she shared with us about the case, I'm looking at page 13, where it shows what their projections are. Looking at their sales, general, and administrative expenses. I mean, you look at the first two, 2012 and 2013, they've got a lot put in there. And I don't know if that's because they've got too many people hired or if they're just wasting the money that people already invested. Part of me thought if they cut down on the employees they have, I think they hired 3 people, had it up to 5 employees. They just cut it back down to what it was and focused on that minimum viable product and making that work with who they had, which I think they could have done. And I think the real reason they brought more people on is because they were expanding so quick, they needed help. But I think if you cut out a few different salaries, and then, I mean, even if they take a little bit of a hit on their own salaries just to get the company going again, I think that'd bring those numbers down. And by cutting out so many of these products, that cost of sales, because if you look at the net sales and the cost of sales, for the first little bit, our margins, at one point, the margins are 2%, 20%. I think you could really make those margins stretch a little bit more instead of, being on the very end of tipping and losing it all. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Did you guys look at that at all?
Brock, I'm really glad that you brought that up, actually. I wrote about that in my paper, but, if they're having that massive of, administration costs, so their studio apartment that they rented really isn't that big. It was like $1,000 a month or $1,100 a month. So with 5 people, that their salaries had to be massive. So that could be expected with, I think they brought someone from Project Runway. So they have, that part, they're probably going to need to pay them a lot to get them in there. But if the CEOs or CEO, COO of a company is taking such a massive salary, then that's when you know that something's wrong. It said that she didn't even go home. She slept at the place, and she, did all that stuff at the gym. So why would she need to even have, I mean, not a salary, but why would she even need to have more of a salary than, just that? If she should be putting it more back into the business.
Yeah, I don't know if either of you guys are familiar with Stu Kent. They build a programs for schools. I used to work in their sales department when they first got going, and Stu, who is a CEO of the company, started it all. Up until the last couple of years, I think he was number 6 or 7 highest salary in the company, because he knew he had people that he had to pay more to make things work. And he knew he could cut back his salary. I mean, even though he makes a lot more now they're very established and going, he cut way back so that he could pay these people that he knew he needed, instead of just paying himself a ton of money, which I feel like they're doing now because they've got so much seed money, so much capital just kind of sitting there. They kind of just bled it away, and now they're to the point where they don't really have very much to keep the company going. So I don't know. I think of experiences like that, and I look at this, and to me, the CEO, the COO, those two who started this should be getting by with what they need to get the company going instead of what they want while trying to get the company going. Because eventually you'll make more, I think. But right now you should be trying to cut cost as much as you can to make the company profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, we saw that when we were working on the Excel sheets a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Had to cut salary so the company could be in a little bit better position.
So
cool.
Anyway, yeah, that's all I have. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Cool. Well, I got that down. And I'm looking back at our document here. Let me see. There's another part here that says decide as a group which offer we would accept, if any. And that's also in the overview. It's in the purpose section, decide which offer we would take.
Is that for week 6 in the group discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing it. But go
ahead. And so I think this is directly talking about, I don't know if it's offer or if it's talking about whether we wanted to refine the line or expand it, because that's what the paper was about. It's not super clear.
So I'm looking at it's the week 6 group discussion agenda. It said So summarize the situation of Quincy Apparel. Describe the two options they're debating. What's at stake for the decision? And we've kind of talked about that already. Underneath that, it says, who's right, Wallace or Nelson? I think I'm leaning more with Nelson right now, which is producing a narrow range of sizes. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I agree with that statement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that goes along with what we were talking about, like refining all the fashion lines and everything. They probably would have had a better chance just focusing on trying to satisfy a smaller segment than like the whole market.
Yeah. There's another interesting question in here. So there's two questions. Why should the current investors make this loan? And then the next question's, should the investors find the founders? What do you guys think about that last one, finding the founders? Because for me, I look at those charts and I see that they've kind of been they have been very wasteful with the money. So if I was one of the investors, I'd find them. I mean, you put a bunch of money in there and they blew it on their own salaries or trying to bring in these high-end people that they've shown they didn't need because they don't have a product. They barely have a product that's alive right now. I think I personally would find them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's people kind of screwing around with your money that you put in it. Yeah.
I'm not really sure of like the legality of that. I don't really know how that would work for fines. Would that even hold up if they can just say they're trying their best? Like, because they did what they set out to do. It's not like they're going against what they said that they're going to do from the initial investment. So I feel like if it was my money, I would try to find them, but I don't know if that would exactly hold up.
I think they'd have something in some kind of laws or bylaws, or when they were investing, when the investor decided to invest the money, there's got to be some kind of a contract they signed. I don't think people put a ton of money into these things without saying, hey, this is where we want the company to go. And I don't know, maybe it does have to go to a lawyer and get it figured out that way. But yeah, I don't know how that works. I've never thought too much into that. But it makes sense that you could fine them.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. For the week 6 group assignment, that's all I'm seeing. Is there anything else that either of you guys would like to go over here? Wrote down everything we've talked about thus far.
Give me 1 second. Oh, that's long.
Did we cover Rent the Runway? Was the cash formula good? Were the founders?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
Wait, just to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. So this is from week 6 group assignment.
Yeah, so there's two. There's the group assignment, and then there's the group discussion agenda. We're looking at the agenda.
Okay.
So yeah, we have to do both of them. The group assignment we turn in. This one was just our talking points.
Okay. I was looking at something different. Okay. There we go. Now I'm looking at it. Yeah, the compared to Rent the Runway.
Yeah.
Okay, so with Rent the Runway, they kind of had similar issues with trying to have as many lines as they could opened up, especially to overcompensate for the times that they had an influx of rentals, like around the New Year's time. So I think that they both had the same problem there where they wanted to appease everybody, but I think Rent the Runway ended up with more sales than Quincy.
Well, and I think with Rent the Runway, because it was a bunch of rentals, everything generally came back. They didn't have to put so much time into getting product put together and organized and running through different companies. Really, they just get it back, take it to the dry cleaners, get it cleaned up, and then get it back on the line to send out to somebody else. So, I mean, you can compare them. I don't remember talking about them taking a salary, but I don't know. I think that there are similarities, but I think they're fairly different companies in and of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think also something to consider that was good with Rent the Runway and that Quincy Apparel really didn't do too well was how with Rent the Runway they had like with each sale they had what like $5 or $10 that the customer put forward as like a what was it, like an insurance fee or something like that. And so like maybe if I don't know, Quincy did something similar and said like, hey, look, instead of getting a full refund, you can get a partial refund. That way we still make money when you inevitably 22% of you return your items. You know, like that would make the profit margins a little bit better as well.
Yeah. In regards to the cash flow formula for Quincy.
Yeah, we've talked about that one quite a bit. I think the first couple of years are really rough. They're spending a ton of money. Their percent to net sales, I mean, from their gross margin to their net sales, it's 25%, 2%, 20%. I mean, 2014 at their earnings before taxes, I mean, they're finally positive, but they're pretty backwards for a while, significantly, which, I mean, unless you have tons and tons of capital to waste, which they don't, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think ultimately it's not good. They need to trim it up. We talked about a few different things they could do already. I think if they do some of those things, it'll help out. May not solve the problem, but I think it'll help the problem.
True. Also, I mean, we've already talked about the founders not really being the best fit because neither of them had a background in fashion. So we've talked about that. And then as a team, how about the team, investors, and partners? We touched on that as far as the salaries and wages being a little extensive. But what do you think for like the amount of employees they had working? Do you think they should have had more employees or fewer employees?
I think for the amount of work that they took on, the amount of employees was fine. That being said, they shouldn't have had that much work. So,
I think they unintentionally overburdened themselves, causing them to bring on more employees, like you said, Caleb, and I think that kind of just hurt them. It wasn't a good thing to do, but they did it because they knew they needed help. And I think going back to them being the right fit for the company, I mean, if you mentioned Rent the Runway, the founders in that one, they were very, very dedicated. That's all they did. They only brought on people that matched the vision, had the vision, and pushed it, tried to just, be at the end of it all the time, be in the front. Whereas I feel like they talked about here, every time they passed something on, it was a problem and a problem and a problem. People never really caught the vision and wanted to see it become something greater, even after they hired people. So I think outside of the two, they had the vision with no experience and people who didn't care. I think that's where Rent the Runway kind of just ran them over. They no nonsense, there to have a good time, but they were getting stuff done all the time.
Yeah, true. Now, what about the investors? I think they were just doing their job. Just here's to start the company. We're just gonna invest in them, hope for the best.
That's where I'm not sure. I don't know enough about being an investor and how
What protocol they look.
Yeah, because I know you have a board, and you'd assume a lot of these investors are on the board, as of currently at least. I don't know how they proceed. If I were an investor, I'd be like, yeah, I want my money back. I want you guys to be profitable. What can I do? But at the same time, I didn't invest to run your company. I invested to make me money back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard probably as an investor. Especially if you're an angel investor and you have all these different startups, you kind of assume that they're going to hit certain goals and things. It's kind of hard to micromanage. But in this case, maybe there could have been a little bit more done to keep them accountable so that they're not month to month just digging themselves a hole. Maybe the investors could have seen that coming a little bit sooner.
Also, my IBC professor, when I did that, do you guys know Professor Fuller out there?
I don't.
He's a finance guy out there. But I guess he was a venture capitalist in California. And so when we were doing the IBC and we were, making the pitch to the investors, he was telling us like, okay, we do the stats, we crunch the numbers, and we make sure that we understand what we're asking for, and then ask for 10 to 15% more. So, and most investors know that people are going to be asking for 10 to 15% more just in case the forecast goes wrong or something goes wrong. So, as far as that goes, I feel like maybe if the investors pushed a little bit more, and this is me just nitpicking just because the question came up, but if the investors nitpicked it a little bit more and actually asked for like numbers to back them up and said, okay, let's give you some wiggle room just in case you do poorly in the first couple months, that could have been beneficial as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see here. If we had 6 months more cash, could we fix Quincy? That's tough because they're already pretty set up to fail. But maybe with 6 months, just the whole business would need to be changed.
Well, 6 months would lead them to just finishing their spring fits, right? And then starting to open up into the summer sales. So maybe they would see that, huge influx and it would pull them out. But maybe if the question was another year, I would say, yeah, but at 6 months, that's, you're really just about to get to that change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if 6 months would work. You'd have to cut down your employees and then streamline your your production schedule instead of using multiple people. You probably want to try to find one that could make what you need. But even then, that's a lot of process and fitting into schedules, and yeah, I don't know. If you did, it'd be very, very close.
Yeah. So was Quincy doomed from the beginning? I think that's kind of something that we've talked about, just based on who the founders were, how they formed their business around an idea that was just too big to tackle. I think that those beginning steps, especially in a business, are so important that they're really set on the right course. And if you've read the book Good to Great, the people that you have, if you have the right people, it doesn't necessarily matter what direction the business is going in, but those people can help figure it out. And I just think in this case, they just have the wrong people, and it's just not, from the very beginning, was not headed in a good direction. What do you guys think?
I would agree with you on that. It looks like it's trying to get us to read this B case.
Yeah, I'm reading through that right now.
Oh, okay. I'll do that as well.
Let me know when you guys have looked over that.
They're almost done. All right. Caleb, let us know when you're done.
All right, I'm finished.
Okay, so
after reading that, what ideas do you have about kind of Quincy from the beginning? And it kind of adds a little bit of a clearer picture of kind of how they came from the background and trying to raise appropriate funding and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You guys still think from the very beginning, though, after reading that they were having those issues?
yeah, I think they just kind of they're screwed from the beginning.
Yeah.
You look at one of the things it mentions is a 50-50 split, and how that rarely works out. You need to have someone be that 51. And that goes back to the CEO, COO thing where they were just these fake titles, essentially. They just walked all over each other. So by making that 51-49 split, it would allow them to have someone actually be in charge and really call the shots. Not that it solved the problem, but at least you had somewhere to point to and be like, hey, this is how we're doing it. Not, let's do it this way, let's do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of going along with that. When we were first talking, I completely forgot that they literally hired the family and friends. You know, so I think it's kind of silly to think that. I mean, like, another big thing is like you really shouldn't mix family and business. You shouldn't poop where you eat. So, I mean, you're begging for a fight to start.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the brother was involved. I might have skipped over that point, but they said, does it really feel like a 50-50 split? It doesn't, because who was it? Nelson, Alex, had so many people in her family invested into this that it was just hard, whereas Wallace, it was just her. And once she quit her job, then, I mean, she needed the support, she needed the help, she needed income, so they really had to get it going. Whereas Alex could just lean on her husband. So I think they were just, they were moving too quick. They should have kept their jobs. And I can't remember, in Rent the Runway, did they keep their jobs and then go to this job, or did they quit and just be completely invested? I want to say they kept their jobs for a while and then did this when they weren't working, but do you guys remember?
I don't know if it was that case study, but I'm pretty sure didn't someone drop out of business school to run it? Or was that not that case study?
Something like that. I think a few of these people have done different. That's why it's hard for me to remember.
Yeah, I don't know if that was Rent the Runway, but I've never seen something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they were, after reading through all this, I just don't think they were ready for the grind that comes with starting a business. I think they were like, we're going to quit our jobs and play the trunk shows. They thought, we'd do a couple and we'd be done. Turns out they really needed to push through those and get a bunch of them done to keep numbers up, but they just weren't prepared for it. So when it came to it, it overwhelmed them.
Yeah, also, I thought it was pretty funny how, like, when they first came into the business, I don't want to, I'm pretty sure these were the numbers. They're just like 20% of our sales is going to come from trunk shows, and we're just going to guess that 80% of it is going to be coming from online. Like, they didn't even have a fully functional website at that point. Like, how would they even know?
Yeah, exactly. I think that sounds right. I think that's where the grind of the trunk shows came in. I think they thought that 20% was rather small, when in reality it may have been like 50%. That's where they're going to start their business, but they weren't ready or committed enough to do that.
Yeah. Let's see here. Hey, good thoughts, by the way. Also, let me see here. Okay. So I think for us, we just, our top 3 takeaways. And I'm trying to see, because this is my first time leading. Do I just put like the timestamp in the Word document of kind of when we're talking about this stuff?
How do we usually do that?
Now that you mention it, I completely forgot to do that last time, and we didn't get docked points for that. So
yeah, maybe look at a couple weeks back, Brandon. When I did it, someone else submitted the timestamp, but I submitted the video. So maybe just look at how we've done it in the past. I don't know who did it. Maybe it was Justin or Sarah, but someone was on the ball for it.
Yeah.
But I know we've done it in the past, so maybe just look back on some of them. It should.
Yeah, because this says we just need to provide a timestamp in addition to the link during the time we summarize votes and decisions and thoughts. Well, anyways, I might just go back in the video and just put this in then. But top 3 takeaways for me, Quincy Apparel. I'd say number 1, that if you start a project with the right people, I think that ultimately will have a big impact on the outcome of the entire business. 2, that it's okay to when you're in a startup to sacrifice paying yourself in order to put that money towards investing in the company to be in a better position later, financially, both for you and the company. And then I'd say my 3rd takeaway, it's better to master one trait than be a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Couldn't agree more, man. Great summary.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think your first point really speaks volume to it. I mean, if you don't have, you can be the wrong person, but if you don't know who the right person is to onboard or to bring in, you're going to sink. And I think that's what they dealt with. They didn't know who to really turn to. They found some big names, but it didn't do them any good in the end. So I think having right people around you can, whatever it is you're doing. Anyway.
Well, cool. Well, that's all I've got. If there's anything else that you guys have, we're good.
All right. Brandon, I'm going to go ahead and post this to YouTube. To download the video and post it, it'll probably be like 30 minutes to an hour. So just expect it around that time frame.
Okay, sounds good. Tell you what, when that's done, just shoot me a message in the inbox thing that it's done.
All right, sounds great.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Take it easy.
Oh, who's gonna be leading next week?
Oh, has Sarah led yet?
If she can't, I'll do it.
Okay.
You
Thanks
just
for sacrificing, buddy.
Man, appreciate it.
Okay, we'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
See you.